Hi, my name is Patrick Ayertey. I'm here at Salesforce. I'm a senior manager for the threat and vulnerability management team. I support our functions in making sure that we're able to discover assets across our network and then scan them and then make sure we're able to report them in a timely fashion and then provide any assistance to the business unit to make sure we patch them in a timely fashion for us to stay secured. I've been at Salesforce for a little over a year now. I'm originally from Ghana, West Africa, and I live in the San Francisco area. Before I get into today's session, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the people that are currently suffering, grieving, angry, and afraid with all the recent racial injustices that is taking place around this country. Systemic racism and violence have affected the Black community for far too long. And this is top of the global pandemic that we're currently facing and all the economic crises we're facing. As a company, we're led by our core values of equality, where we stand as allies to the Black community against racism, violence, and hate. Our panel today includes thought leaders across the security industry who will provide their perspective on the future of cybersecurity, how to grow your career in this field, and how Blacks and Latinx professionals play a major role in shaping the future of this industry. With that, no one else can represent the panels better than ourselves. So I'm gonna ask each person to introduce themselves. So Chelsea, would you like to start?
Hello, nice to meet all of y'all. That was a great introduction, by the way, very great introduction. So yes, my name is Chelsea Pierre. I am right now stationed in Tampa, Florida. Right now, I currently work as a cyber network engineer for the Department of Defense, specifically in the SOCOM department, that's Special Operations on MacDill Air Force Base. And what we do is we support the boots on the field. What we do, we make sure that that if there's any type of attackers or anybody who's trying to penetrate the SOCOM network, that we're here to catch it, defend it, and prevent any type of intruders who's trying to attack the soldiers who's on the field or just our nation in general. Now, outside of that, I'm also a e-learner trainer. I was selected to be an e-learner trainer for a couple of various e-learner platforms like Pluralsight, Cybery, and right now, me and another guy, we're trying to create a project on Udemy. And so this topic is very important, and the people who's on this panel, we come from different areas and from different expertise. And I often get the question about the diversity and inclusion in cybersecurity and other technical areas of technology, but definitely in cybersecurity when it comes to how many women is in cybersecurity, is it easy for an African American to get into cybersecurity? So what we're doing right now is very important. Again, when I mentor, that is one of the questions that's asked, and it's time to sit down and let's talk about it.
All right. With that, thank you, Chelsea, for that elaborate introduction about yourself. So MK, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So Patrick and Chelsea, it's a pleasure to be with you guys today talking about this very important topic about diversity in tech. My name is MK Palmore. I'm a VP and Field Chief Security Officer for Palo Alto Networks. I've been with Palo Alto Networks now for a little over a year in what is essentially a customer-facing business development position as an executive, ensuring that we meet the challenges of our customers by engaging them at the C-suite level and talking about cybersecurity solutions that might be relevant for the challenges that they're facing. Prior to joining Palo Alto Networks, I was an FBI agent for 22 years. In the last stint of my time with the FBI, I was an executive in the San Francisco office leading the cybersecurity investigative teams for FBI San Francisco. Prior to joining the Bureau, I was an officer in the United States Marines. Certainly the mission that Chelsea indicated is one that's near and dear to my heart in terms of protecting the troops on the ground. But looking forward to the discussion. In addition to my day-to-day duties with Palo Alto Networks, I'm also the leader of a of the Bay Area chapter for ICMCP, which is the International Consortium of Minority Cybersecurity Professionals. And that's an organization that's geared towards increasing the presence of women and minorities in cybersecurity specifically. So this topic tees up nicely with much of the work that we do.
All right, thank you. That was a very awesome introduction. So as you can see, this is a very rich audience here. So we have the civilian experience, we have the military experience, and I feel like that will be a lot of rich information that will be shared on today's session. One of the things I want to say is that Salesforce, our core value of equality and trust is always on top of mind. On the Salesforce security team led by our chief trust officer, Jim Alto, maintaining customer trust and keeping the data secure is of topmost priority to us. And as Jim said in a recent call, the rapid rate of growth and complexity in securing technology would take a lot of diligence, a lot of dedication, flexibility, creativity, and collaboration to keep us very secured and sustained. And I think we can relate to this statement. And this means that we need to build a very elaborate and diverse and inclusive teams to really help us drive security going forward. And so any thoughts on how organizations should develop, recruit, and retain talent, especially in this ever increasing demanding industry, especially for Blacks and Latinx?
So, sure. So one thing that I typically preach to a lot of mentees when I'm mentoring them is that it starts with the foundation. It starts with you. It starts with us. It starts with the technicalities that you have, right? So you could put in a resume and pray and wish to get hired, but it starts with your expertise. A lot of organizations, Salesforce, my organization, Blur's Lead Technology, MK's organization, a lot of us could push for diversity and inclusion and get you in front of a recruiter and demand and hold up flags and hold up signs that says, hire them, the ratio is off. But before we can get there, it starts with, are you technically inclined to accept the position? So we as a people, we have to make sure that we are educated, skilled, trained, and prepared, right? And so it means finding your local organizations or finding these companies, and as well as the companies itself, creating an opportunity to train your people, because cybersecurity is going to always be here. Cloud is going to always be here. Network is going to always be here. System admins was there before. Programming was there before I was even born. These areas will always be here. But if we could figure out, okay, let's say cybersecurity. Okay, well, what is cybersecurity? What area in cybersecurity do you want to be in? Do you understand what all constitutes of it? If you get into an interview, yes, part of the interview is, hey, are you able to function on the technology? I will have you behind. But the second interview is, what is your sound understanding? And that could be self-taught, right? That could be self-taught, that could be self-taught. Are you able to talk? Are you able to pronounce? Are you able to, speak in front of whoever is interviewing you? Do you have the drive to excel? Like a lot of people try to get hired in these positions and they say, well, I had all the qualifications, or I had a degree, or I graduated from this, or I have a master's in cybersecurity. I don't understand. Well, we can approach these companies head on, but we have to help each other, right? So it starts with the foundation of what in cybersecurity do you want to do, and do you understand the roundabout of what is involved in it? Did you know that Linux could be involved? Did you know that having a sound understanding network has to be involved? Like, do you really understand? And are you able to create a sound resume? Are you actually able to sit up in front of somebody and perform a very well interview? From there, we could hold up a flag, we could fight, we could say, hey, he does deserve this position.
All right, thank you so much, Chelsea. And MK, do you want to share additional thoughts on that?
Sure. So Chelsea approached it from one end, which is how can we prepare as a people for the opportunities that might be available for us in these positions. So let me chop that up into the other side of the equation, which is these enterprises, these companies, these vast enterprises, global enterprises now that comprise the tech industry, and more specifically, cybersecurity. These are global industries. And yes, as Chelsea indicated, we all know the numbers. They're bad. They're poor. The representation of women and minorities or underrepresented minorities in these companies is not good. And there has been a call for companies to change that narrative, change the narrative, and also change those numbers. And many companies have raised their hand, said, "Hey, we're going to try and do better in this, and we're going to establish positions in terms of diversity hires and make sure that we tackle this problem." So we need to hold them to the task of this thing that they have now bitten off on. That many companies have also said, especially in the aftermath of the George Floyd incident, that they're going to try and do better as it relates to Black and Latino populations. And so we need to see how that's going to merit out over the course of the next several months and even years, because it will take a lot. It's like changing the direction of an aircraft carrier. It's going to take a lot of effort and input internally at these companies in order to meet these candidates where they are. We cannot stand for the belief or them saying that they don't know where to find these candidates, because they are out there. There are tons of folks who have prepared themselves for these opportunities, and there are at least a ton others who would be inclined to be successful in this field if only the opportunity were put in front of them in the right way, and you made them understand that, as Chelsea was indicating, cybersecurity specifically, a field as wide and as deep as any profession I think that there is out there. There are many avenues that you can go down in terms of getting into cybersecurity, and I'm sure we're going to touch on a little bit of that as we continue on in the conversation. But she's absolutely right. You got to pick a direction, right? You got to first get an understanding of what the landscape looks like as it relates to security and in general, and then kind of pick your poison. Where do I want to invest my time, effort, educational studies, and resources in order to level up my skills so that I can be prepared for those opportunities as they may present themselves? So it works on both ends. And what I've always said, I do a lot of talking on this diversity issue. I think the companies want the talent. We know that, especially as it relates to cybersecurity, there's, as we like to anecdotally say, 0% unemployment. There's no one with cybersecurity skills out there who doesn't have the opportunity to get a job, or at least jobs are available. But there are a ton of folks in the underrepresented minority status who have the skills, wherewithal, and interest in diving into this field. And what we have to do is build bridges so that we can marry the two up, so that the companies have to go, again, to where these folks are, present the opportunities to them. And I think that, with some concerted effort amongst the industry, we can start to move the needle on this issue.
Wow, that's awesome. And I know we've thrown the buzzword around cybersecurity and cybersecurity. So can we define a cybersecurity to like the layman? Like, what is cybersecurity? What if your 13-year-old asks you, what is cybersecurity? How do you explain that to them?
So I'll take a swag at this first, and I'll let Chelsea jump in as well. To me, cybersecurity, if we try and very much simplify it, is really just the processes and tools that we put in place in order to protect data and digital assets. That's it. It is a all-encompassing term. I agree with you. I think we throw it around a little bit too much. But if we really start to concentrate on the issue of hardware and software and the need to protect these digital assets, again, via tools, processes, and other procedures that you put in place, there is a way to protect your digital assets. There are frameworks needed in order to sort of use as a template in order to do that. But at its very heart, cybersecurity is simply the protection of digital assets.
Awesome.
And it is, and I'll piggyback off of what he's saying, because a lot of companies, right, and it's not necessarily the employee's fault for being confused, because a lot of companies, they confuse what cybersecurity and network security is, and they are the companies, and they're out here trying to hire employees, and they are confused about what the terminology is and what it refers to, and what type of employees they're looking for. They will put, we're looking for senior network security, but in essence, you look for somebody with cybersecurity expertise, or you put out, hey, I need a cybersecurity analyst, but you have a whole bunch of firewall requests, right? Which, you know, it can go hand in hand, but a lot of these companies get it confused. So your description is quite accurate. I like the definition that you gave. And for those who may be still confused, who may be at a novice level, like, well, I'm not sure. I mean, data processes, that's everywhere. If you look at the OSI, honestly, you can honestly start with, well, what am I securing? Let's just start with the application level. If we could do layer 4 and up, we're leading into cybersecurity now, right? So
Right.
that's how I would define it. That's kind of how I break it down for those who really don't understand that definition that you gave, which was a brilliant one.
Thank you. Thank
Let me
you.
pivot, Patrick, before we go on, let me pivot off of something that Chelsea brought up, because I don't want to lose sight of it. This issue of terminology. Not only do we get wrapped around it in the cybersecurity industry, guess what? People on the outside really get wrapped around it because they don't understand it. In some of my free time, I do some adjunct teaching at the graduate level for business students. And part of any course that I teach on cybersecurity, one of the very first things that I do is I spend probably almost an entire section period talking about the terminology in cyber, because it can be an obstacle to people getting into it. I actually have found that people who have an inclination towards cybersecurity, in other words, would do well in the cybersecurity field, are sometimes afraid and warned off of it because they don't understand the terminology, because InfoSec professionals throw around lots of heavy terms. In fact, sometimes I think secretly we like it because it creates a little bit of a barrier to outsiders, right? If they don't understand, it increases our value if the outsiders don't really understand the technology stuff that we're talking about. But if you can get folks to overcome that terminology barrier to understand, you know, when you throw out these again, industry relevant terms, firewalls, data security, what is cloud security, you know, really start off with the basics. You can really get someone from zero to an intermediate level just by having them understand the terms that are involved.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I think this is a really good point, because I've had like folks, you know, outside who are not like tech folks, and the term seems very sexy right now because you hear them like in the CSIs and cybersecurity, you know, unit and all that stuff. So I'm glad, you know, we're able to kind of decipher it and really explain it in a very simple term to people, so they can understand that. And, you know, just kind of piggybacking on all what you guys have said. So Chelsea, so for anyone who is interested in entering into this field, like what advice would you give them? What should they be aware of? What should they equip themselves with in order to get into this field?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, it'd be best to do your research and see what area you want to be into cybersecurity. And honestly, when I advise, I give them, I do personality vetting, right? I say, well, based on your personality, let's figure out where in cybersecurity you would want to go. Are you a person that likes to protect something? Are you a person that likes to break something? Are you a person that likes when things are broken, you want to figure out how it happened, like forensics? Are you a person that I understand it, I just like writing, you know, what if I could just write the rules, you know, on a piece of paper? They say like, okay, well, let's look more into IA, you know, okay, well, I like seeing how things are, and I want to catch somebody. Oh, okay, well, let's get into more applications like your SourceFire or your IDSs, right? Or, you know, I think I want to be by myself. I like being by myself. I just like a whole bunch of ones and zeros and code. And, okay, well, let's see if we can get you in Linux. Let's see if you want to be a hacker or a pen tester, you know? So the first question I ask them, I do a personality vet, and I ask them series of questions like, what kind of person are you? Because a lot of people, they like to get into these industries and these technologies based on money, right? Well, what will make me the most money? Okay, well, we could do that, right? But at some point, you know, at some point, you're going to want, as you age and get older and start to experience more, you're going to want to do something that makes you happy. Maybe you're a person, you know what, I'm just tired of technology. I just like running projects. Okay, well, you could be a project manager in the cybersecurity department, right? So the money is going to be there. That's the second thing I say. The money will be there as you advance. But let's get you in the right area that fits your personality, right? And so the third area that I say is, okay, let's break down the cyber and the security. Let's break down the component. Before you can protect anything, you need to know what you're protecting. Okay, well, we're protecting a application, or we're protecting a networking from being intruded. Okay, well, let's look at networks. You know, do you have a sound networking background, or do you have a sound background on system administration, or that particular application? So when people, they try to get hired in cybersecurity roles, they have their degrees, which is fine, because I have my BS, right, in applied computer science, but they have their degrees, they have their certifications, and they got on some platform, performed a skill that they're trying, like HBSS, maybe, right, a skill, and they're trying to get onto it. But when it boils down to where, like, you have a real advanced issue, all you know is at cybersecurity level, right? All you know is, well, this is, I don't know how this happened, you know, I'm not sure how this happened, but if you had a sound mind of, okay, well, you know, if you had a networking background, or if you went over and beyond and maybe studied some snort rules, or, you know, different things, it makes you a sound applicant. Because I guarantee the same way that you're trying to get hired is the same way this guy who worked in other departments is trying to get hired, and they have a sound understanding of how an infrastructure actually works. From when the person lays their hands on the keyboard and says, I am going to hack into your, you know, bank account, right? Okay, well, if they try to hack into my bank account, they probably use some time, they may have used some type of Python or Linux background, right? Okay, well, you know, it's that knowledge that separates you, because most interviews is, what if this happened? How would you, you know, what would you do? Or if this happened, what would you do, right? And it's okay to say that you don't know, but it's awesome to say, I don't know, but I don't know how I would prevent this, because I have not used this application that I'm trying to get hired for, but I can tell you how that person may have performed an attack. So what I tend to do is I try to advise people to have a very sound and rounded mindset of cybersecurity in that area that may fit their personality, or may fit the person who they are, or what they have fun doing, right? So
Awesome. And so I'll kind of take this to MK right now. So I know before you describe what cybersecurity is, can you please describe the breadth, you know, and the depth of cybersecurity? And is it all about zeros and ones coding and stuff like that? Or is there like a specific educational background expected for new hires in the cybersecurity field?
So first of all, I want to thank Chelsea for teeing up some of this in terms of the answer that she just gave, because I think she was spot on about the knowledge piece. Cybersecurity is so vast, so broad, that you might find yourself from time to time feeling like you have covered, you know, a mile wide and an inch deep of any particular subject, because you can go down some very specific rabbit holes. But what I want to do in terms of responding to this question is make sure that folks understand that cybersecurity is more, it is more than just the technical pieces of the individual parts. And so I want to encourage folks who feel like that they don't necessarily have a specific technical background, that does not mean that you can't learn, overcome the knowledge barrier, and make yourself viable within the cybersecurity industry. One of the ways that I would recommend doing that, and this again dovetails or pivots off of what Chelsea was indicating or saying, get educated. There are quite a few educational resources out there that will allow you to take a very methodical approach into cybersecurity. In fact, what Chelsea described as kind of figuring out where your interests lie, there are actually some institutions that will provide you a guided exposure to cybersecurity, so that one, you get the basics and fundamentals of information security, right? Which exposes you again to this vast field. The next course may dive deeply into some particular aspect of cybersecurity, but then you come up to a Y in the road where you need to decide whether or not you want to be more technically oriented or, as Chelsea was indicating, maybe more leadership or project oriented. And that's where the field really kind of breaks into two separate veins. And I would encourage folks to look into those programs that are available. You know, at the time that I got educated, I was in the FBI. The Bureau paid for all of the cybersecurity training that I initially received. And that was crucial to me. But one of the first courses I took was a SANS course around general information security fundamentals. And I found that if not that one, there are certainly other courses that are provided out there around just information security basics. Again, get that that sort of shotgun to the face of just this is what cybersecurity is in general, or information security, which is actually a more proper term. What information security is in general. And then as you get exposed to the vastness of the field, again, you begin to be able to pick out, hey, this is an area that interests me in particular. Forensics may be an area that you want to dive deeply into. Network operations may be an area that you want to dive into. Maybe, like Chelsea said, maybe you find yourself like you want to be a hunter. You want to be sitting in a SOC environment and actually, you know, playing the game of looking for where the adversary is in the environment, looking at what they do, kind of watching them from afar, capturing their tactics, tools, and techniques, and then gathering that knowledge. Or you want to take that even to the next level and be a researcher, right? And you actually want to publish works or papers on cybersecurity. All of it requires different skills and different emphasis on skills. And so, no, all of it is not just ones and zeros. And please do not let that be the thing that stops you from venturing into the cybersecurity realm. Everyone in cybersecurity is not a coder. So don't make that kind of assumption. And again, don't let that be the thing that stops you from putting your foot in the water.
Okay. No, this is really great. Go ahead, Chelsea. Looks like you have something to say.
I just want to add 5 more seconds to that. And he's right. Just look at it like one big ecosystem. And not just for cybersecurity, but every other area in technology, because you have to look at it from the top to the bottom. You have somebody at the top, right, that's in leadership, and this is all cybersecurity. They're creating projects, they're creating STIGs. What is STIGs? STIGs is the written, we could say rules, right? This is what your employees would do on the computer. This is what they're not going to do. And all they're doing is writing STIGs, right? They just enjoy writing rules and making publications, and here's what you're going to follow, or else we not only going to remove your access, but removing the keyboard away from you, right? All the way down to the managers, right? That, hey, I like to be over people. I want to report to these people. This is what's going on over this network, to the people who are, with technicians who are actually on the keyboard. And then that branches out, right? Not everybody wants to do, you know, programming. Not everybody wants to do this. Some people just like to sit down, monitor. I see something. Hey, come look at this, right? I mean, whatever you enjoy doing, there is an area, because at the end of the day, it is a need, is to protect. We are protecting something. What is IT? IT is building, creating, innovation, or protecting something, right? So it is wherever your creativity masses leads you, that's where you could be. So you don't have to come in like, oh my goodness, I never touched the computer. Okay, well, you know, you've been working in HR for 20 years. Okay, well, you know how to lead people and understand documents. There's an area that we could place you, right? All skills are needed. So.
Oh, this is fantastic, and I'm really happy how you guys explain some of the self-assessment test, right? I think that's something that really hit me really hard, because we're all different. There are people who are just naturally at breaking things and remaking things. There are people who are very good at seeing things before they do happen. There are people who are just very good writers. There's some people who are very good public speakers and all that stuff. And I feel like there's a spot for everybody, you know, with those type of personalities and there's natural attributes within the cybersecurity space. So I'm happy we talked about that, because a lot of people I talk to, they just get deterred by the term cybersecurity because they think you need to be very technical. You need to know how to code. You need to know network security. But I think there's just more to that. And I feel like there's a place on the table for everybody who wants to be part of it. And that kind of leads me to this question here, or maybe even I can make it a thought, right? So I once worked in a company where within our team, there was actually someone who was a psychology major who got hired within the team, right? He had no programming background or any technical background, but he was a psychology major. He knew how like to people think and what make people think, tick and stuff like that. And I remember after the person got onboarded, they became one of the best cybersecurity analysts within the company, because with analysts, it's all about like, taking information and analyzing and making deductions out of it to make, informative decisions. So I just wanted to say that the fact that that person was a psychology major and they didn't have a computer science background, but yet you can see for cybersecurity analysts, you need to have a certain mindset. You need to think in a certain way. So I just wanted to kind of say that. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add to that.
I think that's an extremely valid point in terms of the backgrounds that people come from, and I think your example was spot on. At the end of the day, you're protecting these digital assets for what? So that people or users can actually use them. Because users are ultimately the last line of defense in any particular network, knowing how people think, knowing what steps someone might take. We have via the attack cycle, adversarial steps pretty well mapped out. It's important to bring in those real world understanding of how people interact with one another, because, that might make you a great cyber defender. Maybe because you know how people act or how an adversary might act and think, you then would be able to know what combination of automation you need and what level of human interaction you might need in order to both detect and be able to mitigate adversarial activities. And so all backgrounds are welcome. That's, again, you guys are hitting on some of the dynamite stuff here, I think, that really dislodges this topic from the level where people can't reach it and get at it. Not everyone that comes into this is technical. And I always follow that up with, but that doesn't mean that if you are technical, if that's where your inclination is, believe me, there's plenty for you to dive deeply into in the cybersecurity realm. We just want to make sure folks understand that there's room for everyone else as well.
All right, awesome. This may seem more like a repetitive question, and I know you guys have talked about the fact that you do provide advice to some folks. Sometimes people come to you, I'm trying to get in this field. What can I do to get in? Can you talk about some of the biggest obstacles that's posed to young entrants into this field, and what advice you give to someone who is making an early or midterm career into the cybersecurity field?
Chelsea, you want to bite off on this first?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So it was tough. My IT path was tough. I was probably Air Force. I got out and joined when I don't remember how I was joined, but I got out when I was in my early 20s. Right now I'm 32, right? So I did comm while I was in, then of course got out, finished my degree, and I worked between contracting, doing tech contracting on base, as well as doing IT jobs for other companies on the side as well. I had 2 young girls, so of course it was just me, single parent, and got 1 degree, and I'm trying to make it work. So as challenging as that was, I see it was a difference, right? It's a difference between working on base where they're forcing equality and they're forcing, hey, everybody needs to come. We have an EO. If you have any issues, we're just trying to get a mission done, get on the computer, do your job. Versus, all the different other companies that I worked for, to where I was either the only female or the first female or the only female of color or the first female of color. And so it was hard. And I say it was hard because they're hiring me and I'm the first female. So they take me to be their secretary right now. I did tech in the Air Force. I have a degree, I'm certified. Give me a task. Okay, well, we want you to do inventory, or we want you to clean up the server room, or, we want you to do just secretary type of work. Why? Because, when it boils down to it, you're a female. Even to include the stereotype that males in tech or males get paid more than females, and a lot of people be like, no, that ain't true. It's true, right? It's different now. Don't get me wrong. They have plenty of organizations like Black Girls Code and Women in Cybersecurity, Alabama Tech. Like, there are different organizations out here that is fixing it. I mean, from when I first got into tech to now, it has been a massive change and a massive push, but it's still difficult. Even when I go to certain, well, not no more because COVID, right? But even down here in Tampa, when there's different organizations creating meetup events, I go to them, and I'm typically the only female there, right? Or I'm definitely typically the only person of color there. I remember one time I went to one, it was me, then another Black woman, she came. Of course, we spotted each other because we just a spot on a white wall, right? And so we just merged to the side. And she says, oh my God, I'm so happy to see another person like me. I'm like, hey, she was like, are you a student? Because, you know, typically when they tell you in college, go out to meetup events, network, so you can find a job. She was like, are you a student or you're active in your industry? I said, I've been in this industry for years. You know, are you a student? And so she was a software engineer. And so she was telling me her woes, and her woes was like mine. She was like, they hired me. And I think they hired me because they just need to feel, you know, there was nothing but males. And I think they need to show some type of diversity and inclusion. So they hired me, but they don't have me do anything, right? So it was similar to my experience, right? So it is hard, but what you do, what you will do, right, is show them, you know what? You don't have to have faith in me as a cyber engineer, right? Because of my gender or whatever type of bias. But when you do give me something, I will excel in it. You know, if you do try to put me in front of a meeting or have me, okay, you know, have the woman go and talk to the meeting about what happened. We're about to leave early. You know, shine. Just outshine. If they have you do something, do it over and above. If they don't have you do something, educate yourself, right? I believe that if a company isn't loyal to you or they don't want to, educate yourself. And as you educate yourself, advance more in your skills, understand what you're doing at that capacity where you're at, leave and go to a different company that does want you, right? I mean, it has gotten better as a female, but we still have a long way to go, and we're pushing and we're showing like our gender shouldn't matter. You know, it shouldn't matter. But the numbers is sad, but it's growing, right? So it was hard, but we're, you know, it's, the more women that's on these conferences and these women in tech conferences, these more empowerment conferences, we're doing better. We're pushing, we're paving the way. We're saying we could do it, you could do it, all of us could do it. It shouldn't matter.
Awesome.
All right, thank
Hey,
you.
so I have a general approach to this, which is KNOW. Make sure your knowledge is straight. In other words, do what you need to do in order to get educated on these subjects. You can preemptively go into and get educated on these things before someone hires you to do these tasks. I highly encourage folks to do that. I'm always studying, even as a seasoned professional, always looking to get, that next certification, reading up on this new technique that's out there. So stay abreast of the industry, knowledge. Secondly, networking. Networking may be the most valuable tool or asset that you have in your arsenal at the end of the day, because you can acquire all the skills you want, but if you're not properly plugged into a network that's going to help you find the next letter, opportunities as they are presented to you, you will absolutely not succeed. So you have to build up a strong network, which means you got to put yourself out there. You got to attend these conferences. You know, Chelsea mentioned pre-COVID-19. You got to attend the industry events. You got to look for opportunities to plug in where you can. Organizations like ICMCP, people of color in tech, other organizations out there that allow folks the opportunity, again, to commingle, exchange those business cards and get to know one another. That's how you're going to get that third piece, which is the opportunity to get into this industry and be given a chance to excel. And the last piece of that, which Chelsea also hinted at or actually said explicitly, and that's the W for me, which is work. you got to knock it out of the park. When you are given that opportunity to get in there and be a part of it, doesn't mean you can't fail sometimes. And hopefully you do get a chance to belong to an organization that allows you to fail fast and pick yourself up quickly so that you can get on to the next task. But you got to knock it out of the park. You got to perform, show yourself to be invaluable to the team's objectives, and make yourself a desirable team member so that people can then turn to you, give you that extra work, give you those leadership opportunities, and before you know it, you're off to the races.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, and just kind of hearing from what you guys are saying, it all boils down to you, right? It's how do you want it and how bad do you want it, right? And how bad you want it to determine how much far you're able to go, right? One thing that someone said to me is like, whatever you want to become, you're already what you want to become, right? So if you want to be a singer, you're already a singer. It all depends the extent to which you want to go with it, right? So if you want to be a cybersecurity professional, you want to get into the field, you're already a cybersecurity professional, right? It all depends on the extent to which you want to go with, and that comes with the work, the knowledge acquisition, the networking, and all that stuff. And I'm really happy you guys were able to kind of emphasize those points. And I think the key thing for me here is, and I think that was one of my mentors also told me. He told me that you are hired in a company because of your technical ability, but you will grow based on who you know and how you network and a lot of the soft skills you build along the line. So it just kind of summarizes everything for me right there. So thank you guys for sharing this thought. I know we're almost approaching time, but one of the things I want to ask across is with the search, and those will be one of our last questions before we wrap up this session here. So with the search and remote work, it seems like our personal lives and professional lives are becoming more and more intertwined. So how do we balance personal privacy rights versus our company security? Is this something that you want to share with the audience?
I'll let you take the first
Sure. Thanks, Chelsea. So yeah,
I know you got a lot to say on it.
No, I mean, issues surrounding privacy. Hey, you know, for consumers, who I spend a bunch of time talking to consumer groups as well. You know, for consumers out there, or the general cybersecurity or data user, data enabler, the cybersecurity fundamentals always weigh out. And that goes for consumers, and it also goes for large-scale business enterprises. So for the consumer, the basics are what they are, which is, you know, use that antivirus, anti-malware solution. Make sure that you are going through the usage of these apps and making sure that you are making adjustments to what are the default settings on your privacy settings. You know, some organizations or apps have actually, they'll put that information in front of you. Don't ignore it, right? If it tells you need a privacy checkup, go through the couple of pages or 4 pages or so that you need to go through in order to make the settings appropriate, so that you understand who it is that you're sharing your data and information with, because I think people really don't have a handle on the amount of data that we're generating as individuals in the course of a day, and what's happening with that data in terms of what other organizations are using it, right? You know, we're all working in remote access now. So, you know, the typical stuff, if you're just a common user, I would recommend that, you know, you pay attention to your home network, make sure that you have antivirus and anti-malware solutions on your network so that people aren't intruding upon your network or dropping malware in there without you knowing about it. Again, take the basics, level up your understanding of basic security around the devices that you utilize, even in your home network, like things like using a VPN solution or a VPN solution when you're out and about. There's lots of little things that you can do to level up your security presence on the internet, and we should all be doing those things while we're in this remote status.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And he's right. He's right, because a lot of, let's say, the upgrades or downloads, you know, even your iPhone, right? Tommy used to work at Apple as well. You know, a lot of the stuff has to be by law public, right? You know, you have your cell phone, it's like, oh my God, they're doing another upgrade. Wow, you just let it go overnight. Look, what are they upgrading, right? Oh, you know, look it up. Well, it's for a software bug. Well, how long has it had a bug? What issue did that bug create? Even when you get on certain websites and it says, hey, can this website, you know, your permission to allow this website to access your location or to go through your cookies. Well, what is a cookie? You know, sometimes Sometimes you may search diamond rings, and then you go on another website. Can we access your cookies? Sure, whatever, just move, right? Just yes, 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 yes. And then you go to a different website, then you see an ad of the same, gold earrings that you looked at this website. It's like, is there a spy in here? Well, no, right? You're giving them permission. Well, what does it mean to access or locate? Like these little fine permissions, allow. Literally look at what you are allowing this company, right? These people to access, because you can hit no and then look up and see if you hit no, is it really no, right? Because they are gathering a lot of data. So these companies can make money because, used to be years ago, they'll call you up. Hey, have you heard of this company? How do you feel? What do you think? Do you like this? No, they're not doing it like that no more. What they're doing is going, as you're searching, can you allow your location? Why? So we can know what region. Can you allow us to go through your cookies? Why? So we can know how many people like this type of area. So it's, you have to be careful. You have to understand what these upgrades are on your phones and your computers. Why are we upgrading? What are you patching? Why do you have the same security patch every 3 months? What is going wrong? You have to notice that, or else you have an issue. And oh my goodness, I've been hacked. How did I be hacked? Who stole my identity? You calling your cousins, your mom, and which I know all y'all know my social, who hacked to my stuff, and no, it was you the whole time, right? So it's important.
All right. Thank you. Maybe I'll put this maybe last final question. So what is the future of cybersecurity? Is it like how we see in the movie, what comes into mind? Like, what is the future and how should we brace, for it?
Cybersecurity is still fertile, right? It's still a baby, right? It has so much, the idea, the concept, the growth, the getting the cities involved, the getting the government involved, right? It is an egg that still truly has not hatched yet. We're still young in it. We're still very, very young. There are companies that's still being attacked. Y'all paying $200K plus for your for these chief officers for your security, right? And why you have a whole security. Some large companies don't even have security engineers or cybersecurity professionals or network security employees. It's still, we're still learning, right? And then as well as still trying to create diversity and inclusion. And now we added cloud on top of it. So, and now we're about to go into space, right? So we have a long way to go.
So I love that Chelsea helped to level set our understanding of where we are as an industry. This is still in its infancy, right? We because we've been exposed to this, almost hyper exposed to it over the course of the past 5 to 10 years, we seem to think that cybersecurity has been around forever, and it has not. I mean, we're really talking about an industry that's just about a little over 2 decades in terms of its growth, in terms of being infused in business enterprises, because it wasn't until the late 90s and then early 2000s that really the adoption of technology grew or began to grow exponentially from year to year. And then I always like to talk about the pivot that we all had to make in 2007 with the advent of the iPhone and the App Store and that whole thing. Now we get in the cloud and SaaS solutions and that kind of thing. So the future is bright. For cybersecurity. This is one of the biggest growth industries there are in terms of professional jobs and availability of work. So from that vantage point, it's a great area to get into because you can be a part of the growth of this industry as we begin to build out solutions and really kind of respond to the other part of the equation, which is the technology changes that we all expect to see in the coming decades. And I think that the palette is not even full with what we should expect to see in terms of growth in technology. I'm excited and fearful at the same time. More excited though in terms of what we are going to see from technology standpoint. Think about how far industries like the aircraft industry's come in just a 100+ year time period. Technology is growing exponentially, right? The internet really was just forcibly introduced to the public in the mid 90s. I'm a little bit older than you guys, I think, so I still remember the advent of AOL, and when we all got our little AOL disc in the mail. So email became a thing very quickly, but then it has exploded to this, where we literally are participating in a conference virtually, right? So we got a long way to go, and cybersecurity is going to play a part in it. And if you are interested in joining something that's interesting, weigh in and become a part of cybersecurity.
All right. Thank you, Chelsea, and thank you, MK, for this session. This was very informative to me, and I hope you viewers out there, this is very informative to you.